So, well, one of the puzzles that I have about this play is um, how to treat Medea as a hero. Is she as much of a hero as Oedipus, or is Oedipus more of a hero, or how do they compare as heroes, Oedipus and Medea?
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, they both have anger management problems, seems to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It gets back to the question of whether we're talking about a tragic flaw, a hero being defined by, or actually a tragedy being defined as a narrative with a hero who has a tragic flaw that brings them down. I wouldn't say that her anger is her tragic flaw, but it is certainly a big part a big part of the personality that we see, this volcanic anger that she has, that she harbors, which I think some commentators have said goes beyond anger at Jason and is really directed at the patriarchy within which she lives. The fact that she doesn't have much power, though that seems, for someone who is kind of semi-divine, that I find that a little puzzling. But then, that whole issue about her status as either human or goddess is a puzzle that no one seems to have any definitive answer to.
There are other examples, I think, that come from the ancient Greeks, including Achilles himself, where his willingness to take action, and murderous action, is one of the defining features of his heroism, and indeed elevates him to a status someplace between mortal and immortal, halfway in between.
But how about Medea?
I'm sorry.
And Oedipus.
Well, I think the same thing happens here. I mean, Achilles took action because he was defending his self-image. He was resolute in determining what was fair and right in his own interest, and he stood up in the battlefield even after he and the rest of the Greeks had arrived in Troy and refused to fight initially because he didn't think that he was being treated fairly.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry, please.
Ron, get to Medea and Oedipus.
Yeah, well, I think it's the case that Medea is standing on principle. She's standing on her having invested in a life that, in its formation, required her to kill her brother and eventually her father, and to exile herself from the land of her birth. And it seems to me that in the case, as we're talking about Oedipus, he was also resolute, and indeed was determined to maintain an image of who he was as a leader, as a king, as a hero, and to protect himself against all comers until it was very clear that his pridefulness was misplaced. I mean, what's missing here is catharsis. But in any case, in terms of a heroic character, I think an argument can be made that Medea is one.
Okay, well,
She's not simply a monster. I'm sorry.
Ron gives a very positive view, I think, of Medea and Oedipus. Would you agree with him?
No.
She certainly got away with 4 murders, and ended up living with the king of Athens or whatever during that time. Was, that was that was that was a pretty striking outcome at the end of it. How do you blew me away?
Certainly, from my point of view, there's no. I'm not. Well, I'm not sure I understand why the central character has to be judged in terms of his or her morality. I mean, it's a reflection of her circumstance, her personality, the culture. It's complex. It's also a reflective, and I did wonder how much of this is a projection of the male fantasy of female sexuality. So I think, I don't know, it's hard for me to focus on the morality, because how could you defend the morality of what she does? I mean, I don't understand that. Or maybe I just don't understand the concept of hero. That's probably the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what the question that I'm asking is sort of about the concept of heroism. Mike Roman? Mike?
When she's having second thoughts, and then there were some lines about, well, if I leave and they're here, my kids are going to be murdered and have a tough time. So I might as well do this mercy killing myself. And then when I was reading, there are some other versions of the play where she doesn't kill them. She leaves and then they're killed there, maybe to support her more as a hero and take the killing of her children out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think once she had the kids, the children deliver the robe and the raiment and all of that, and then the 2 deaths. I think the kids' days were numbered anyway, and she probably thought that, and so better to be slain by her hand than, however more gruesome, they might have died at the hands of the rulers to be. That was the other question I had. Did Medea and Jason ever get married legitimately? Were they actually wed?
I have the impression not.
Yeah.
So this was there was no. I don't know that it really mattered in those days whether they were married or not. If he decided he wanted to move on, but I don't think they were actually married, whatever that meant at the time.
I think Medea considered herself married.
Yeah.
I mean, they exchanged vows, they made commitments.
Yeah, she did.
Maybe it was impossible for Jason to be married to a barbarian. But in terms of faith and commitment, there was an asymmetry. I mean, Jason was playing by one set of cultural rules, those that apparently applied in Athens, and Medea was playing by a different set of rules, the rules that she thought had been agreed to between herself and Jason, and were the basis for her acting in her homeland before they arrived in Corinth.
I think the difference between the 2, Oedipus and Medea, is that Oedipus had the good grace to gouge his eyes out at the end of the play, whereas Medea simply skips away to live her life someplace else. And I found that a little bit disturbing. The woman had serious issues about marriage and husbands and wives. I read this passage to my wife this morning. I was disturbed that she was nodding as I was reading it to her. At line 230 of the play, it says, "We women are the most beset by trials of any species that has breath and power of thought. Firstly, we're obliged to buy a husband at excessive cost and then accept him as the master of our body. That is even worse. And here's the throw that carries
Sounds
the
right to
highest
me.
stakes."
You're taking issue with that as a description
Yes.
generally? Okay.
Yes, I am. I'm taking issue with that.
Well, I disagree with you, and I agree with your wife.
Are we choosing up sides here?
You're here.
You gotta walk in our shoes a little bit, guys.
By
Absolutely.
contemporary,
Medea was betrayed. She was wholehearted. She was betrayed, and I don't think that there's a more scary, fearful experience than betrayal, especially, by a husband. And I think as in the role of hero, she said, "Okay, well, here's yours. You hurt me, I'm gonna."
right.
In
It's
terms
just
of the
kind of like
mother.
my duty. She felt a duty to not just limp away, but to take some action.
Right. But by contemporary standards, I think we would find her action easier to rationalize if she had gone after Jason directly, killed Jason, killed he's the perpetrator. Instead, she takes two innocents and kills them. And arguably, the princess whom she kills is also innocent, just being manipulated by her father and so forth. That
Why does she not kill Jason?
I think she wants because then his pain is over.
Right.
She wants him to live the rest of his life in pain. It's a much greater a much greater punishment to kill the children. But of course, okay. And she's willing. Presumably, that's also she's punishing herself, but she can rationalize it, she can justify it, and the satisfaction that she'll get from knowing that Jason is suffering apparently outweighs her pain.
Mm-hmm.
At the front end of the play, Jason announces clearly that the most valuable, two most valuable things in his life are his boat and his two sons, and that his life.
I have several neighbors like that.
Maybe we can all relate to that a little bit. Anyway, she takes him at his word, and then at the end, when he's desperate, alone, and without prospects, she comments again that she has left him desperate and still alive, but that he has an awful life to look forward to. So, I mean, this is all.
Yeah,
she's very calculating.
She's
very. I'm sorry, please.
Sorry, mission accomplished as far as she's concerned.
Absolutely.
There's also the role of the immigrant, both in Oedipus and in this one right now. And he's going to end up being an immigrant with no protection in his new land. I thought that was a pretty good cross section as well, both in Oedipus and in this one and in Medea, how they established the role of the immigrant with parallels to today.
Well, on that immigrant, she has a place to go. She's now going to go to Athens and will have a good life. It occurs to me to wonder, why doesn't she just take the two children with her? That would deprive.
She wants to put Jason in pain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that would deprive him of the children. And he might not even know if they're dead or alive by the time she gets to Athens.
I think she had really little concern about the welfare of the children because it's her actions that make them vulnerable, period. So whether once they get to a certain point after she's acted in a certain way, whether they'd be killed mercilessly or mercifully, she's created the vulnerability of the children.
Indeed.
So
They're used as pawns.
absolutely, yeah.
Totally.
You know,
She certainly,
I'm
she
sorry.
certainly doesn't feel great about killing her children.
No. I mean,
Well,
what's different between
good
the
for
two
her.
plays,
Good
of
for her.
course. I'm pleased.
Go
Didn't mean to
ahead.
cut you off. Go ahead. You talk. Talk all you like.
No, I think you had something to say, Ron.
I was going to say what's on display here is two very different worldviews of two very different playwrights. One who perceives the art of tragedy to involve bringing, at least in the context of the play itself, breaking all the loose ends together, making a kind of rationality and creating a coherence within the play framework. And the other has a perception, basically, that tragedy cannot be understood, that there are irrational acts, that the gods set the stage and move the pieces in a way that we can't understand. And if we try and make rational sense of it, as we're trying here through psychology and projection of our own thoughts into some of the characters, we inevitably fail because there is a rationality and a predisposition among the gods that we simply can't access. So to make sense of everything that happens in the play, and in particular the Deus Ex Machina injection, is to posit a view of the cosmos that is not shared by the author. And that's the fundamental difference between the playwrights. One has has no faith in a rational universe, at least one that men can and women can observe and participate in and to some extent affect, and the other has just the opposite view.
What role do the gods play in Medea?
At the end, Zeus gets her out of a jam.
Yep.
But where during the play do the gods play a part?
There's reference to her being the granddaughter of Helios, the god of the sun, and so there was the reference to that as that she appeals to when she's with Aegeus after that to get her away safely. Part of the plan.
There are lots of appeals to the gods. They're invoked on both sides of this broken family, and by the chorus, but they're not intrusive. They're just beyond the stage. If they're involved at all, it's not in a tangible, active way until the end with the chariot taking her off to Athens.
Where does Medea appeal to the gods in the play?
Why does she have an appeal to the gods?
Yeah, that's what I wonder. I can't remember that she does.
Well, she has some godlike properties. She has access to them by virtue of her divination capacities and capabilities. Maybe she's a little closer to them than other participants in the play, certainly than Jason or Cleon.
But isn't that something that you need to read into her rather than it being presented in the play?
Well, I think her magical capabilities are something that frightened Cleon, that he's aware of, that he wants to prevent becoming effective to his disadvantage and his daughters. So he exiles both Medea and her two sons. So that's one testimonial to this to these attributes and capabilities that she has.
How does she do anything magical?
I don't think the point is her access to the gods or her magic powers. I think what comes through to me is her you could call them superhuman powers. That is, she's smarter than anybody else. Apparently, she's certainly more determined than anybody else. She has and she knows it, and they know it. Apparently, this is why she's being banished, because she has so much potential for mischief making or worse, chaos making, if she stays behind. And I think this is one reason the play is presented now so often. Because she is a very, very strong female character. Not admirable by our standards, certainly, but strong in her determination and her willingness to act.
But is there anything supernatural about that?
No, I don't. No, I don't think it has to be seen as being, guided by the gods. I think she can be seen just as a very strong human character.
What about her magical abilities? Where do they come from?
Well, where do we see them?
Well, we see them in her discourse with the king of Athens when he just shows up in the middle of the play. That's kind of another Deus Ex Machina event, and he's been looking to find advice from what is it? Anyway, he's been looking to wise men to give him advice about how he might bear a child or two, and he knows her by reputation and immediately acknowledges her superiority over the other prophets and soothsayers that he's been engaging in dialogue, and immediately grants a boon to her, gives her refuge, and invites her to Athens. So, I mean, we have at least that testimonial. We don't see, of course, in most of these plays, most of the acts take place either off scene. They're told to us. They come second hand or third hand. But here, at least we have a direct testimonial.
I'm not sure, Ron. I'm not sure of that, because I have a pharmacist who can do about the same thing that she did. So, I mean, really, she just gave him a drug of some kind, didn't she?
It was in the clothes. It was in.
Mike?
Yeah. What is the context, Forrest, or other people on the help that she gave Jason and the Argonauts? It was one of my favorite movies as a kid, and a spaghetti western. But I mean, she did a lot of magical things and got help from the gods during that. So that's the context that she had that we're not reading about in this.
Right.
But do we see any of that in this play? We know that if we have done some research, and we as the audience would have known, that she helped him with the Argonauts to get the golden fleece. But I still don't understand where in this particular play we see any of that that's you might call supernatural. She seems to have very good insight into Kriya's weakness and the weakness of other people, but that's kind of a shrewdness on her part, isn't it?
Isn't her departure related directly to the deities? That how she's spirited away at the end of the at the end.
Yeah,
But-
but I'm talking about all the part of the play before that.
It seems to me that if she were being presented as something other than human, as being godlike or being connected in ways with the gods, she might not have had to take this to take the action that she took. She might have been able to avert this personal disaster in the first place, or to respond to it, without killing her children. That's the point, I think, that I take anyway. That and maybe the explanation for the popularity of the play, that she, despite her gifts, despite her intelligence and her insights, etc., there are things she can't control, including her husband's, or whatever he is, behavior, and which is, as at least as he explains it, well, it's not that I love this princess, it's just that I see a good deal for myself and my children here, and so I'm gonna take it. Well, that's something she can't do anything about. She can't call on the gods to stop this from happening. She has to deal with it as a human being, without many resources, and she does what she does.
He's justifying his actions in that interchange, and she's justifying what she's going to do. When you get that interplay with the two of them, that was pretty dynamic. That was fascinating.
Yeah. And I've seen a couple of productions of this, and Jason is usually presented as kind of a good guy, kind of a weak character, but not an evil character, who doesn't really wish. Okay, he's going to dump her, but he doesn't. He doesn't want her to suffer unduly, et cetera, et cetera. He thinks he can make her understand the rationale behind what he's doing, particularly when he throws his kids into it, and through some kind of muddled reasoning that I couldn't follow, he suggests that the kids will be better off if he has more kids who are connected to the royal family, who are royal. I never quite got what he was driving at there. But it just sounded like a guy, who was throwing in everything he could come up with in the face.
Well, they're gonna have a better life. They're gonna have a good life. They're gonna grow up as princes.
Well,
this,
then why does Creon, or what is that his name, Cleon? Why does the king banish the kids along with her? Doesn't he tell her to take the children and leave?
Yeah.
And only later does
He relents later.
apparently later the princess is persuaded to intervene and save the children from having to be sent away. All that is, I don't know, kind of muddled to me, but yeah. Anyway, the point, I guess the point that I was just trying to make was that in the presentations I've seen, her persona is, let's say, all too human. She's unable to control her emotions, or to moderate them, or to think rationally, despite her pain. I don't, when we get the gods involved, when that chariot appears, I think from my modern point of view, the whole thing loses some value. Dramatic.
From a modern standpoint, I mean, when is one justified in relying upon wanton violence to address an injustice that was done to them? It seems to me. I thought her reactions were totally out of proportion. What my thinking was, having done some domestic law in the past, is that she just needed to get attached to her chapter of Parents Without Partners and move on with her life. But she instead kills her children, the king and his daughter. I mean, it's just kind of out of proportion to everything.
Well,
Ron,
I'm sorry.
Lance presents Medea in quite a different way than you did earlier.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that, I mean, we shouldn't look at this from a 21st century point of view. I think if we reflect on Odysseus, for example, who comes home from the Trojan War and discovers that his wife is being courted by a lot of gentlemen, and he goes about slaying them. He lashes out. It's the same thing with Achilles in the field of Troy. I mean, he's once he's overcome his issues about identity and social standing among the Greeks, he proceeds to kill a couple thousand Trojans.
Let me interrupt you again, Ron. But
Sure.
how does this apply to Medea?
Well, I'm suggesting that the same criteria, that is Greek criteria, if we apply it to Medea, she might be considered a hero. I mean, the criteria has nothing to do with your willingness to kill or to use violence. It has everything to do with what motivates you to do that, what principles drive you. And I was citing two examples, which I think were precedent setting and the basis for whatever legal thinking might have existed in ancient Greeks. And they apply. What doesn't apply to her is that she's a woman.
Well,
and that she's a foreigner.
Well, yes.
So, I mean, the big issue is she a monster or is she a hero? And I mean, there's a lot of, I think arguments can be made on either side, but I think if we try to use criteria which are relevant to the context in which this play is set, I think we can't simply say that her violence disqualifies her.
Why should we still be reading these plays? Why is Medea still put on in its original or in a modern context in film?
When they were talking about this going forward, reading the first 3 or 4 pages, and they refer to the fact that there's papyri, whatever they say in that, and from the 6th century BCE after the 3rd century current era CE in that area, that there's evidence of the play being played and played and played, and all the artwork on those things. I thought that was kind of fascinating, that there's records of this play going through all that period of time. That I kept on thinking about something that's written in the 21st century. Will that be being shown, whatever this world is like in the year 3000, 4500, or wherever it's going to be? That's fascinating, that it has that much resonance with so many people over such a long period of time. Even, if I thought at this point, if any of us have ever lived through, either family or friends or even personally, going through a particularly terrible divorce, the recriminations of something like this, like we see between both parties, between Jason and Crayon and Medea, it would just overwhelm me in some of the parallels of what I've seen.
Yes.
It strikes me also that it's dealing with this, iconic situation of male infidelity
Yeah.
And always the hypocrisy of that as a departure from the norms of most societies.
Yeah.
So it's a very powerful situation, that male infidelity. And this may be kind of an aside or beside the point, but it does, whether it's Lorena Bobbitt or Medea, it does make infidelity more of a high risk behavior. And women might kind of enjoy that aspect of it, even though, morally it's indefensible.
Yeah, I got the Bobbit thing, but I'm disturbed by the thought that we're trying to justify infanticide amongst us here. And I think that's a very hard thing to try and justify.
Sure.
Regardless of the period of time, what I learned from this course with Forrest this time is that if you want to get rid of a kid, you got to expose the kid when he or she is a baby, and that's okay. But after that, it's wrong. So,
Well,
but
I'm not-
aren't we attracted to these characters because they are presented as being very human?
Yeah. They're flawed.
I'm not so sure that we're excusing the behavior of anyone. And I think what we're doing is understanding. We're using our own humanity to understand how someone could do what she did or what Jason did. I'm not so sure any of us are excusing it.
It's interesting. This is a stage setting that has been replayed a couple times in the history of the West. So, 300 years later, Seneca wrote another play, I think with the same name, and he was a Stoic, and his point of view was quite different than the one we're exposed to here. And I think his was basically an example of why a Stoic philosophy was appropriate to a Roman era and to the culture that he was a part of. I don't know that there's a similar takeaway here. There's certainly no simple one.
I'm just suggesting that it speaks to our own humanity as observing these characters as if they were real people facing real crises in their lives, and that we understand how terrible their situations are from the point of being a human being, not just somebody living way back in those days.
Yeah. Like the main.
Put yourself in the position of Medea.
Could you could look at it as the main characters being feelings instead of Medea and Jason, like betrayal and passion, scorn, anger. That these are the main characters, and those are characters we all know in some form.
At the end of the play, there's a repartee between Medea and Jason. Each one of them speaks a single line at the other. It goes back and forth. It's kind of sing-songy. And it's clear that Jason wants some reconciliation. He wants some kind of catharsis. He wants at least the bodies of his sons to be left behind so he can bury them properly. And she's having none of it. She is still exultant in the pain that she can see she's inflicting on him. And she leaves him with the thought that he's going to have to live with this loss for a long life. And she hopes that he suffers every day. So, I mean, what you have here is our acute characters. I mean, it's hard to project yourself into either one. It's hard to empathize in a way that is soothing or resolving. I don't know what you all thought, but There is no catharsis in this play, none whatsoever.
It reminds me of something my father used to say to us. It went like this: you are cutting off your nose to spite your face. And I think that's what she's doing. She's suffering, but she doesn't care because she is that mad.
Yep.
She's already killed her brother and her father.
Right.
Right.
It's that situation. There's bodies littering the highway on this point. What's one or two more?
Well, she did that for Jason, and that's part of why she is so intensely betrayed.
Yeah.
She
And he
got
just
the homeland.
excused his
Yeah.
behavior.
That's true.
I find it interesting that that the play is today as popular as it is, with such an I would say unredeeming main character. What is that? I mean, yes, it's a very stirring thing to see on the stage. You know, in the hands of a great actress. It really is. But and so you can. I certainly understand why the greats are attracted to it, to see what they can make of it, and maybe to see if they can extract some sympathy from the audience for this monstrous character. Maybe that's what it's all about. Why do audiences flock? Well, because they want to see a great actress playing such a role. At least that's why I've done it. Not necessarily because I think I'm going to be edified or inspired or instructed morally. It's a performance that draws people, I would say, the performance.
If you could change just the ending, would that make any difference for you?
For me, well,
Anybody.
I said I thought the chariot was a false note, but in another sense, it doesn't matter. Basically, she escapes. She gets away. It doesn't matter how she gets away. Jumps on a ship or whatever. Except that we have the idea that she's not going to get caught and whatever.
Yeah. Let's say she jumps into a helicopter, which takes her to Athens.
And in a modern production, that might very well be what she does. I don't know. It avoids the jarring note of the god of some sort of Deus ex machina intervention by the gods, but that's the only difference I would say.
I would have been happier, Forrest, if the chariot maybe was blocking Oedipus's way, and he went and killed Medea and 4 or 5 others, and that would have resolved a lot of issues for me with her.
Let me get back to the question that I'm not sure that we have finished pursuing. What makes it possible for people, if not you people, but what makes it possible for people to think of Oedipus or Medea as a hero?
I don't see either one of them as a hero. So I don't have an answer.
Okay.
I found the killing of the children, it's hard to emotionally get beyond that, even if she is punished for it. It's just such a horrendous event. It's, beyond. I know we understand that it's to hurt him, but still, there's something that's just hard to digest.
That's why some versions left it out.
Yeah. Mike Roman, any ideas about her as a hero?
Well,
Like Roman.
hell hath no fury than a woman scorned, right? I mean, I think justified and her sacrifice and what he did. But as I mentioned, if you cut out the killing of her kids, it's a lot easier for just for many people, including the Greeks at the time, evidently, to see her as a hero. You know, when the play first came out, it was panned a couple times, right? You know, he didn't win the
Right.
awards until 2 or 3 times, and so I guess
Yeah.
people had
It
people,
won a prize, but you know, it was always the second or third prize.
so maybe it took a little time for people to digest it or be more accepting.
Don't you have
What
to have
the-
for
what-
hero? Don't you have to
What
have
does
somebody?
it mean? What does it mean to you to be a hero in this context?
Don't you have to have somebody with adulation? You have to have some adulation for the character. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody who had that kind of adulation for Medea any place in the entire book. There was nobody promoting her activity at all. I can recognize the pain she was feeling, but to be a hero, I think I have to think of somebody worthy of praise, and I don't hear any praise.
Well, the king of
There were,
Well, the term hero is so freighted that it's hard to answer that question without a definition of the term. And we tend to think of hero as having some sort of moral content, heroism having moral content. I'm not sure that was the case for the Greeks. I mean, sometimes hero is merely the protagonist, the person about whom the story is being told, without any particular positive qualities or traits. I mean, I think there have been plenty of stories over novels in the history of literature that had leading characters. You might call them the hero, and yet there was nothing particularly heroic about them. Tom Jones or whatever. You name it.
Why? What? Excuse me, Dorothy.
you asked before, someone asked if there was anyone in the play who sympathized with Medea. And there are several places where the women's chorus sympathize with her and blame Jason and say, you deserve this, Jason.
That's true.
And then they plead with her, not to kill her children. I mean, get the women are on her side and understanding her plight.
Until the children thing comes in. The chorus does not ever sympathize with her killing of her children. So.
Well, they plead with her not to.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they agree with it.
Yeah.
But they sympathize, they understand.
the king of Athens, of course, invites her to migrate to Athens. The only issue is how she can get there, and he says this after it's common knowledge that she's done a lot of damage to the family of the king of Corinth, and though she hasn't killed her two sons at that point, I don't think. But I mean, he's acknowledging her as somebody who's estimable and I would argue heroic in some sense. So, I think that he is another factor that comes into the play from the outside and speaks with authority and provides a new point of view. He's another mechanism, so-called Deus ex machina, that's at work in this play.
Let me go back to what Richard was talking about, that the, excuse me, sorry, that the person is just, some person might just be a protagonist, that is, somebody about whom the story is being told. But my question is, why is this story being told? Lucy?
Well, it just occurred to me. I mean, I'm a mother, so I can't even fathom what she has done, and calling her a hero makes no sense to me. But this is so much about women's rights and feminism. And so if, putting the children aside as an object of some kind. She's really fighting for her right to make this statement that, you know, you won't take my children. You're not going to get away with this. And that's the way it's going to be, you know? So she's standing up for her right for women, I think. If I can ignore all the murder and horrible stuff, that seems to be a
Right.
theme there.
Yeah, rather than limping away quietly and, you know, giving in after she suffered and sacrificed so very much for Jason.
Did we ever have a story where Jocasta is the protagonist? Jocasta is the one who the story is about? I would think not.
I think not too.
So what's the difference? Why is Medea a worthy object of the story, of telling the story?
He has no power, but she has almost absolute power at the same time. At the end, it's the play between the two of those is impressive.
She's a vivid character. She's a dramatic character. You know, she's a watchable character. Her anger is so overwhelming that you know, we well, I don't want to say we can't take our eyes off of her, but you know, we're kind of drawn to the spectacle, I guess. This horrible spectacle that is nonetheless compelling. That's why I was saying earlier, I think it's all about performance and the kind of dramatic impact that this has, the emotions that it stimulates in an audience, certainly a modern audience. It occurred to me though that, you know, the Greeks watching this may not have been as stirred as we are by the offense that has been done to her, given the role of women in Greek society. I wouldn't expect an audience, perhaps even an all-male audience, to be particularly moved by her plight in the first place.
Right.
That's why maybe he didn't get the first prize.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get
Could be.
the bronze medal. There's something here, but yeah.
Too many men in the audience.
There were a couple of things in the story. They kept on using the word desire. It just kept cropping up at different parts. At one point, it was twice on the same page within about 12 lines, and sometimes it was capitalized as opposed to being lowercase. And I kept on thinking at that point, forgive me on that stuff on there, but that was part of, but that word in capitalized, I wondered whether that had almost a supernatural, supernatural sense to it at the same time. I thought that struck me pretty hard, and I didn't know whether that was almost a feature of the gods as well, but it was repeated, and how much of that was revolved in my desire to kill someone, my desire to have a new wife, my desire to, how does desire run over everything else?
But this is all very recognizable. That's recognizably human, isn't it? Those desires, not necessarily the actions that you know, people walk away from marriages all the time. People seek more advantageous marriages all the time, and you know, people experience desire, you know, in inappropriate ways, etc.
Desire is rather dangerous, isn't it?
Well, I think it shows how dangerous revenge can be. To me, it's not quite just anger, it's revenge, how revenge can have a life of its own.
A desire for revenge. Yeah.
I read a sign outside of a corporate building on the highway, and it said, The best revenge is to be happy.
Yeah, living well is
Sure.
Well,
Sure.
Good. Yeah, good one.
right. Well, that wouldn't make a very good play, though, would it?
Remember,
I wouldn't know.
I can't remember what the context was, but I suggested that sexual desire is not something that in ancient Greece that you wanted to have.
At the front end of the play, there's quite an elaborate and very explicit diagnostic about the circumstances in which Greek women find themselves and their Greek husbands, and it's quite profound. I mean, there are a lot of conventions that make that relationship inherently unstable and problematic, at least from the woman's point of view. So women are cloistered. They spend a lot of their time in their houses doing a specific set of tasks which are appropriate. They don't mix in public. They don't interact with other people. The pains associated with childbearing and child raising are represented to be several times greater than the kind of nobility and military reputation that men strive for and fight for. There's a very elaborate discussion that is political in nature and that causes this Athenian audience, I think, to be persuaded, at least marginally, in support of Medea's general position, independent of her private and personal interests. And I liked some of that. I thought, of course, it's amplified and reinforced by the chorus, but it's there. And then,
Right.
and she strikes a very sympathetic position before she becomes diabolical and maybe hateful by the end. But she I'm sorry, please.
I think also she, I don't know, in one of the essays, I think it was in the Lysistrata book, it said that women were characterized as passionate, uncontrollable,
Hysterical.
sexually voracious. And, Forrest, you're saying that it was not.
And doesn't Jason taunt her with that? He suggests in his defense that he has these noble reasons for leaving her, and for her it's just all about the sex, and she can't get him beyond that, which must be infuriating. It's not about the sex. It's it's about being left in the lurch, and so yeah.
Along those lines, I was struck by some of the subtext that I came upon. The chorus at line 1090, my conclusion is this, that people who've never had children and have no experience of them are certain happier far than those under parenthood's yoke. With no opportunity to experience children as joy nor as causes of pain, they steer clear of many ordeals. I mean, that's a kind of a depraved look at having your family together there. It's
yeah.
And I guess that was I don't know, is the chorus Euripides speaking? Is the chorus, I don't know, they're the women of Corinth, I guess.
One of the things that you have to come away with, I mean, is the awareness that Euripides was an iconoclast, that he was certainly running against a lot of generally recognized best behaviors and profound beliefs. I mean, he was a troublemaker, intellectually at least.
He was politically incorrect.
He was politically very incorrect, exactly. Yeah.
And of course, in Lysistrata, even though they do this outlandish thing to bring about peace, they all go back to being domestics or domesticated again at the end, as if the audience will recognize that, oh well, they're getting back to their proper place now. So it's reinforced even in that comedy.
Lots of catharsis there. Even the Spartans loved the Athenians, and the women loved the men again. Everything is folded neatly back together. Everything's healed.
Would you say
Apparently
that Lysistrata, the character Lysistrata, has a lot in common with Medea? Mike, Roman, you're
Well,
saying
I
yeah?
mean, both in sense a feminist stance and supporting, the rights of women. So in that respect, yes.
Anything besides?
Well,
Well, I
one of
think-
the things about Lysistrata is that we have to remember that the marriages were all arranged. So the extent to which the women are with partners that they prefer is really questionable. So the idea that they're going back to their beloveds, I don't know how representative that was of life at the time.
Any other ways in which Lysistrata and Medea are alike?
I think they're both problematic from a feminist standpoint.
I agree. Yeah.
They're flawed examples of feminism, if you will. In that they're in the case of Lysistrata, you could argue, and I guess it has been argued, that in the end, she does accept herself as and her fellow females as sex objects. They talk about their sexy lingerie and so forth.
Mhm.
They're not wearing. That's not for them. That's for the men, and that's a role that they accept. So yes, she is a powerful woman and takes a stand and uses what she has to get what she wants. But there's still
Does she have? What does she have?
sex. Her sex, her sexuality is her weapon, and she uses it. And that remains a problem for I think modern feminism. To what extent is that part of what we accept in in women, in a woman? Stormy Daniels. Okay, you could make a case. Here's a woman using what she has to make her way.
Yeah, what
into the
does she have? You just keep saying that, but what
Yeah.
does she have?
I've said it twice now. Sexuality. She's got her body.
Oh, you don't
and
give her much credit. Holly?
Yeah.
Holly?
This is all through a male lens.
Mhm.
I'm feeling my blood
She
pressure go
doesn't
up.
when I read Lysistrata, I thought to myself, where does it address the tedium of sex with men you have no interest in? So if that's not represented anywhere, where women are so powerless and the men are assigned to them, the idea of these relationships all being passionate are wish fulfillment. I don't know, for the audience or for the playwright.
Yeah, but all the illicit sex is described as being very passionate. You're talking about when you had to marry the guy and you weren't so crazy about
Well,
him.
that was the situation of women at the time of the play.
To
It,
talk,
it calls to mind the famous Seinfeld line, fake, 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 fake.
right,
You know.
right.
Well, so
Lucy?
I'm thinking that in both of these stories, Lysistrata and Medea, the women are feeling completely trapped. They're
Yes.
trapped by the male world they live in. And I found myself a few days ago at a gathering telling a friend that I probably would not say this to anybody else. So that, that I have a new hero, Stormy Daniels,
Mhm.
because she
Why?
came
Right.
she was used, abused. She's in a profession that is something so far from what I think about, and all of the context that goes with that profession. But she got to sit in a chair in a legal room, a courtroom, and she got to address her perpetrator and
Yes.
tell the truth. She got to tell the truth. And the truth matters. And I think these stories are all related to what's going on right now in our own world. I think women do feel trapped. And so when they strike out, like a squirrel being kept in a cage, they might kill some children. They might kill their father. They might do whatever, because it's just not a good way to be.
I look at my mother's generation and my grandmother's generation, and something that I noticed is that the way women managed to survive and let's say get what they wanted or needed was through manipulation, and not necessarily sexual. They always went around the bush. They found other ways. And manipulation was a trait that women developed in order to take care of themselves.
Back to Stormy Daniels, she's a businesswoman. And she was, an actress in porn, she's a porn star. And that's looked down on because we've got prostitutes and then we've got saints. Those are the roles for women. But she also was a director and she was making money in the business. So how about if we think about her, when people say, it's just business. For me, this is just business. And
one of the phrases that women are often will use in certain situations is that one of the quotations is, a man wants a woman to be a saint during the day and a harlot at night, if you will. So that's the fine line, if you will, that women are trying to blur.
I'm feeling impelled to take my wife out to dinner tonight, which I'll do if she gets all the cleaning and dusting done during this afternoon.
Well, why do you think she's cleaning and dusting? Because she's learned.
I must say, this is my fiction,
Yes, thank you. Good luck with that.
I wonder if you aren't overlooking some of the characteristics of these women, Lysistrata, Medea, and Stormy Daniels. They all seem to be very bright in the first place.
Yes.
They're very intelligent.
That's true.
And they are also very insightful, and they're also very brave.
Yeah.
Very.
And so in some ways, they are all three of them worthy of our respect.
Yes.
And even admiration. Not in total, of course, but admiring their brightness, their intelligence, and their bravery makes them very, very special.
So in that way, Medea could be a hero.
One of my favorite sayings that came out of the 60s was one that was frequently used to describe Howard Cosell. I don't know if everybody remembers Howard Cosell.
Yeah.
And
I think you told us that story.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm
no,
sorry.
that was Lance. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
that was me.
Yeah,
Guilty.
go ahead, Ron. Go ahead, Ron.
Anyway, I think the same expression could be used to describe these two women. And that is that Howard was frequently wrong, but he was never in doubt. And here, I think what you have are two women who are profoundly committed and deeply believing in a certain principle, a paradigm for a different way of living their lives. One, in the case of Lysistrata, that's more peaceful and more amicable, and of course, in the case of Medea, one that's more equitable and that's fair and that creates space for women to live fulfilled lives that doesn't exist in contemporary Athens. And I think it's this characteristic that really is one of the emblems of heroism. It's this profound belief in a certain principle, one that's contested. Now, how it should be contested, of course, is a different matter. Related, of course, it crosses over, I guess, from I don't know what from what's the study of from ethics to well, I've sort of run out of my mind is getting weak now as I've gotten older. But anyway, both of them stand on principle, and
I like to think of
stand
them
strongly
as,
there. I'm
I like
sorry.
to think of the women as, first of all, written by men for a male audience.
Yeah.
So the fact that they are bright and strong means that there are some men either in the audience or Euripides who like that. So it's a male view. This is a male view. This is men writing
Sure.
about these women. And it speaks well of somebody's idea of what they want a woman to be, that they are bright and that they are strong. It's like the taming of the shrew. That's what came to mind, that there's always been a kind of fantasy about a strong woman that's desirable, but it's a male view.
Yeah, true.
I think we have.
Are you suggesting that it's not? It is one that you are sympathetic with, or you are not, Holly?
I think it's just important to keep in mind the power relationship at that time.
Sure.
It was a male view. I'm sympathetic with the characterization, and I'm encouraged that some male at the time thought that this was admirable.
You think the chorus, the female chorus, was supportive of Medea?
Yeah, I do.
I
Yes,
thought they were very
absolutely.
supportive. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I mean,
Yeah,
they were
but
endorsing. Please.
they were a male. This was written by a male for a male audience. That's what I'm saying, that the
But these were female persona. They were acting as and in lieu of women, right? The chorus in this play.
yes,
Yes.
from the point of view of the male writer, they were, yes.
I don't know.
But these
I
two
found
main
the
characters-
chorus to be supportive of women, and Euripides, being a man, wrote that.
Right.
But doesn't every person has that anima and animus? We all have that, and these strong main characters were doing things that men usually do.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes, yes.
With respect to Holly's insight, how are the men presented in Medea?
Well, when he says that he is with the princess, that it's for the welfare, the economic welfare of his family. That was just a con. I mean, that was something that is said to just put a better face on it. That's the way it struck me when I read that.
I agree with that. I think the men are weak and whiny and
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wimpy.
wimpy.
Yeah. There is no strong character among the men.
Yeah.
Crayon to some extent, because he's the king. He's got power in that situation. He's trying to be a strong character.
but-
One-dimensional, but still
Yeah.
strong.
He
Yeah,
is
I
so
think so.
he is so frightened of Medea that he exiles her.
Right.
But he's right to be. We find that he's right to be fearful of her.
He should have been aware of the old phrase, beware of Colchians bearing gifts.
Well, I think we have to remember that in all of the ancient world, including the ancient Greeks, and in most of the modern world, women do not select their own partners. That is all decreed. Like Creon decides that Jason is the right person for his daughter. His daughter has no say in this, of course. I don't know if she's even met Jason when, prior to the decision being made. But this echoes through this play and all of them, that this is not a decision of the women. This is something that is imposed upon them. Our Western society is the exception to this, where normally people choose their own mates. We had an exchange student, this one was from Nepal, and he was very proud of the fact that his older brother was in what he described as a love marriage. That was very unusual in his culture. And I think it was unusual in most of this. So this is all a reflection of this culture. And most of the world today, I'm not sure what China is, but in many other parts of the world, it's the parents or the man who selects the wife, not the woman. And she, in most cases, has no veto power.
That raises a very interesting point, which is, what did people think of the racism in this play? The status of foreigner.
Right.
Came from outside of. I'm sorry, please.
She was a barbarian.
She was a barbarian, right? She was from the east, right?
Right.
Or the northeast, and so when that became an increasing issue, didn't seem to be as much of an issue at the beginning of the play as it was in the middle, and then of course it was an excuse for a lot of things at the end as well. Barbarians are different from you and me. They do bad things. They don't know an appropriate role for a woman. They don't know how to take care of a family. They're even willing to kill their own children, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there was an amplification of that message as the play progressed. What did people think about that?
There was a point in there, and I can't remember where it was a Jason or someone saying to Medea that she had done good work when she arrived with Jason, that she was good with the community, that they accepted her. There was a small section where they were praising her initial contact with the locals, even as her presence as an immigrant. It changed after he decided to take the princess as his bride. So that was one other place where she was being praised, even if it was only 3 or 4 short lines.
Well, killing the king's daughter and of course the poor king going with her is not a good way to ingratiate yourself into the society in which you're living. It's just
the outcome.
One way in which Medea is different is that she did. she did have some agency in the marriage. She wanted Jason apparently, and got why, but she did, and so she is an exception to the rule that we've been talking about, and admirable, I suppose, in that respect, that she did. It's only after she's in the whatever relationship and with children and so forth that she discovers, well, she isn't really, she isn't powerful. She may have had a lot to do with starting the relationship, but she has nothing to say about ending it.
Mhm.
And the price she paid was terrible. From her family, from her father, brother, the country she came from.
Yeah.
A pretty high price.
Yeah. Oof. I feel like we've just watched a production of Medea. The stage is littered with bodies, and they're all spent.
Was it worthwhile?
Yes. Oh,
Absolutely.
Nicely done.
Yep.
What made
All
it
three plays
worthwhile?
were well chosen. Thank you.
What,
I'm sure
what made reading this play and our discussion worthwhile?
Why?
The relevance it has for today's world, and also the great discussions that follow the reading.
Well, the insight into human nature by all of these Greek playwrights was significant, and you see, if you don't have to agree with everything, as I didn't, but you can take away from it that they did have an understanding of the human condition.
Mm-hmm. Not much has changed.
Well, there's another debate. That's another debate.
Yeah.
So, Forrest, are you willing to lead a group letter to the New York Times equating Stormy Daniels with Medea? And we've got a lot of ideas expressed here, and we'll all be
I'll leave
signatories.
that up to you.
Okay.
I'll leave that up to you, Mike.
That would be a good one.
But that's a good idea.
Mhm.
Good idea. Who amongst the writers will take that on?
I don't know, but Donald Trump would be very scared if he'd ever read a book or a play. I can assure you.
you don't have to worry about that, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for participating in this and being such diligent readers and thoughtful. So it's been a good ride, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
I
We
have.
have indeed.
Thank you very much, Forrest.
Yeah.
Thank you,
you.
Forrest, and I
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you is right.
Well
I
done.
appreciate the tolerance of my incomplete thoughts.
No. You're a good thinker. We know that. Really, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dodie,
Good to be with
Dodie,
you.
you are muted, Dodie. Dodie, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
I want to tell everyone how much I appreciate the sense of humor that everyone expresses
Yes.
throughout our discussions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that Lance would have had another calling maybe if he'd moved in the direction of stand-up.
Is it too late? Oh God.
No, never too late.
Sit down. Sit down.
Okay. Well, will you all leave, because I have to be the last one to sign off here.
Enjoy the
Bye-bye.
rest of the
Thank you,
season.
Blackburn.
Thanks, Forrest.
Thanks.